in just a moment. Couple of reminders before we get started here. I want to make sure as you're coming in the room, make sure that you have your video and audio off. You should only be seeing and hearing me and Freedom tonight. Also, make sure you visit our website, www.sdrep.org/listening. That is where you can register for all of our future talks coming up. You can also find links to the past talks that we've had. We'll have links to our YouTube page. Also, if you have anybody who can't get into Zoom right now tonight, we are streaming this live on San Diego Reps Facebook page. So head on over to Facebook, San Diego Reps page, and you can check out the video. Also, a couple of reminders. We are extending this. We're going to keep rolling with this. This is a great conversation that we're having, and the support has been great. And thank you everybody who's been sending us messages, whether it's been by email or by social media. Just want to give you a preview of what's going on. Coming up on July 30th, Thursday, July 30th, our next installment will be executive producer, producing artist director of VIA International Artist, Mr. Thomas W. Jones II. Coming up on August 13th, wonderful actor Mika Wiltz will be joining us. On August 27th, actor Ebony Muse will be in the house. I'll be talking with her. And then on September 10th, we'll be talking to the one and only Sheldon Epps. So make sure you head on over to, again, www.sdrep.org/listening to sign up and register for all of those conversations. So once again, please make sure you have your video and your microphones turned down or off. And you should only be seeing me and my spectacular guest who I'm about to introduce right now. Every time me and this brother get together, man, I don't know. I hope y'all ready, because ain't no telling what's going to happen with me and him.
It'll be fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome everybody to welcome this man to We Are Listening. This is my man, Mr. Freedome Bradley Ballentine. He is the Director of Arts Engagement for the Old Globe and newly appointed Associate Artistic Director. What's up, man?
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. You know, just been busy this week. You know, I've been talking to a lot of people, and I'm so glad that I got to do your program, because when you asked me to do it, I knew that this thing was in the works, and
right.
and I couldn't tell you right then, because you know you don't ever want to count your chickens before they hatch. You know, and I didn't want to say anything and jinx myself. Right. Even though I knew it was in the, but I was really happy. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be on a med show. You know, like he's gonna be my first, you know, like broadcast interview. So I was just really excited, man. And I was looking forward to it. And when you reached out, you know, this week and congratulated me, you know, I was just really happy. I'm really proud of this moment, you know.
Well, hey, man, look, I feel like a reporter who got the scoop. I feel like I got the scoop of the century. I feel like I got the big story of the year. Right when the news broke, I was like, "Oh, I'm talking to this brother this week. I'm the first one." So
yeah.
Again, congratulations to you, man. Like it's well deserved, and I know everybody who's watching today who knows you and knows the work you put in, man. They're congratulating you too. It's well deserved, man. And we know we're gonna use that as the jump off, man. Like we know you out here collecting titles like you Magic, Kobe, or Shaq or something.
Like I'm Haile Selassie. I wore my Bob Marley T-shirt. Just what, you know.
That's right. Well, look, man, let's take that with, you know, the new position, and let's rewind things, man. Let's let you introduce yourself to everybody who don't know you, and give us a little bit of your background and how you got into this performing arts world, man.
Well, so, you know, I got into this by mistake. You know, I always remember, you know, Ghostface. No, it wasn't Ghostface. It was Old Dirty Bastard from the Wu-Tang Clan. And he said, who would be an MC if you couldn't get paid to be an MC? You know, and that's kind of like how I got in the theater. You know, like I was in New York. I'm from New York. I didn't have a job, you know, and a professor called me up one day and said, you know, hey, I know you don't have no money. I know you don't have no job, but a former student of mine just became the assistant house manager at the Public Theater. Go over there and get yourself a job. So I went around the corner. I was at NYU. I went around the corner to the public theater. It was a building that I had never been in before. You know,
Okay.
I'd never been in. I was not a theater person. You know, I wasn't like, that wasn't where I saw my life is going. You know, I came from a working class family, you know, and professions in the theater. That's just not something that we really talk about. It's not really an option. You don't know about the jobs that are there. So I went over there, and I thought that it was just going to be, you know, like I was going to go there, get this little job, get some little money in my pocket, and it just changed my life. And my man that I met that day, his name was Greg Rhodes. He actually passed away a couple of months ago, you know, in this whole COVID outbreak. Young brother, and he got me in, and then he introduced me to the dude that was running it. So he had the first interview with me, and he was like, okay, this guy's, you know, he's all right, you know, he's not gonna burn the place down. And then he introduced me to Kim Reese, who was the house manager, who was also another brother. And there was this guy that worked there, you know, so I was there, and the public theater at that time, you know, George Wolfe was running it. George C. Wolfe was running it. And I went there, and there was this, you know, Danny Hawk he had his one-man show going on there, and he was playing like all these different characters. And Jennifer Lewis was there. She had a one-woman show, and she was playing all these, you know, like she would come out after the show and hold court, and there would be all these black people in the lobby, oh my God, what's his name? More cowbell. I'm blocking his name.
Christopher Walken.
Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken had a show there too, and he was in the basement. His show was called Him. It was this real out there trippy show, and every night he would smoke the whole building out. He'd be in there, you know, doing his thing, and I was like, this is the place for me. This is a place where you could go. You know, at that time, you know, Bob Marley shirt. You know, I was really, you know, like into having my own life, and I felt like, yo, this is a place that I could see myself being. And then this guy Tommy, who had been at the public theater from like its inception, older black man, used to have a cowboy hat on that he would wear, and he said, and he explained to me, he broke it down how I was there. He said, you know, well, you're here because George is here. And I was like, who's George? He said, George is the guy who runs this place. And I said, oh, he runs the place? I said, okay, cool. I'm here because he's here. He said, yeah, he wanted to make sure that the lobby looked like what's going on in the street. So he wanted to make sure that there were black people in there, that there were Latinx people in there. And that's how I got in there. I got in there because of him. And I said, well, point him out to me. And then he came in one day and he walked across the lobby and he's like, there he is right there. And it was this little, George is this little black man. And I couldn't believe that this little black man was running this big institution, this big multi-million-dollar institution. And that made me think, that set me off right there. I was like, well, if he's doing this, I could do this. You know, like I could run an organization too.
Right.
And that's how I got into theater right then and there.
That's right. And
well, not really right then and there. I still took some convincing that I can make a living on this thing. I did go in and I started teaching. I started teaching in Ethiopia. Okay. And all of my little lesson plans were like little plays, and it was like based on what I was going through at the time. So I was teaching kids how to speak English based on what my life was looking like. And when I left Peace Corps, I was like, I really want to work in theater. You know, that's what I want to do.
That's right. That's right. And so at that time when you started, did you see did you think that this was going to be something you were going to do long term? Did you see longevity, or was it like, I'm just going to do this and see how it pans out?
Well, I thought that I was going to, I thought I was going to be an actor, like I was acting at that point, but I was learning how to run a theater. Like when I went back to the public after I came back from Ethiopia, I was like learning, I was like, I'll do whatever. So I was like doing security at the gate at the Delacorte Theater. And then I started talking to, they were trying to grow grass for this play, Cymbeline. that Andre Sorbonne was directing. It was this great set in the middle of Central Park, and it was made out of grass, but they were burning the grass. And I was like, well, you can't pour water, you can't water the grass at noon, and then turn the water off. It's gonna burn up all the grass.
Right.
So I was like, everybody knows that, but they didn't know that. So then I talked to, and then I said, what you gotta do, you gotta get but they were like, we get in at 12, that's when we can water it. I was like, well, you can get a timer and put it on the thing, and then it'll water it at 5 a.m. and it'll turn off by 6 a.m. and then the water, evaporate and everything, and the grass won't burn up. So that's how I got my next job, which was working in carpentry there, because the master carpenter and me became friends. And he was like, yo, what are you going to be doing next week? And I was like, well, my job is running out. He's like, nah, come on, and you'll start breaking down sets and stuff, and I'll teach you that. So then I started learning all the stuff backstage, like carpentry, sound, lights, like everything that it took to make a show go. And then I realized that I was never going to run a theater that way. That if I had a hammer in my hand, people weren't going to really take me seriously. They weren't going to take my ideas seriously. They might say, yeah, that's a good idea, but I wasn't going to be able to run an organization. So then I went back. I went back to grad school, and I got a degree in theater, and I started my own theater company. I came out of college. I started my own theater company. Started doing work that I felt was important around town. Did a couple of festivals, and then I got noticed by a company called Summer Stage, that at that point did shows in Central Park, and it was like it is now, but it was like one of the largest music festivals in New York City, in Central Park, and people always want to come and perform at it. So they were starting a theater program. They wanted to start to do theater, and they brought me in to start that program. And then I did that, and I helped. I was part of the team that really envisioned the expansion of that program from one park to like 17 different parks. And we took the festival for 3 months, and we visited all 5 boroughs, and went into communities that lacked access to the arts. So we were going into Bed-Stuy, we were going into the South Bronx, we were going into Brownsville, we were going into South Jamaica, Queens, like all these places that don't have access to arts, and doing music and doing dance and doing theater, and setting up for people to experience, different kinds of theater. We were doing hip hop theater, we were doing Shakespeare, we were doing avant-garde plays. So we were just trying to pick up all different kinds of pieces so that people could have a different experience with the work and learn theater, because most people in those neighborhoods didn't have the access to theater, much like me. I didn't have that access to theater. Right. I learned about it at the public theater primarily, and Starlight Express, when my high school took me to go see it, or my junior high school took me to see that awful Andrew Lloyd Webber play. We walked around and ate disco lights and did the robot. Well, no, that did not inspire me to do theater, man.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because theater is like everything else, different strokes for different folks. It's different things, different people. People don't understand that.
Yeah. It's different. I mean, like, you can go to theater and see something and be like, I don't like that at all, and then go and see something that's totally different. Like some people like musicals, some people don't. Some people like drama, some people don't. Some people like comedy, some people don't. Some people like avant-garde, some people don't. Some people like political, some people don't. Some people like, it's so many different kinds of theater that you can go in if you have a love for story and culture. And that's what my love was in theater was. It was about getting people together and sharing an experience and really conveying culture through the work, and really getting people together and having that kind of time, man.
Right. So we fast forward to today. Here we are in this national moment of, where it seems like the curtain's pulled off of everything. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we're looking at what's happening in the government. We're looking at healthcare. We're looking at, you know, the racial inequalities. We're looking at issues with the police, and all these things hit in the perfect storm in 2020. You know what I'm saying? And so here we are, and these are conversations that in theater, you know, we've been having. You know, we've been having these real conversations amongst ourselves, and sometimes at work. You know what I'm saying? But we've been having these conversations, and now here's a time where people are, you know, eager to get these conversations out in the forefront. And, you know, I know you're like me, you know, we've been having these conversations, and now these conversations are happening. We want to see what happens concretely across the board, in not just theater, but in entertainment and in everything. Yeah. And so, you know, now that we're here and everything that's informed you, what, just give me your thoughts, man, on this moment we're in, and the thoughts you've had in all the different aspects you've had coming up in theater to this point. Give me your thoughts on things as far as, you know, what you've seen over time, issues or whatever it is your thoughts are on when it comes to race and equity and inclusion.
Well, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that's happening. You know, we may have been having this conversation, but not everybody seems to be having this conversation. And I think that's evident in something like, you know, We See You White American Theater, and people's reactions to that, and different people having different reactions to it. And some people saying, you know, that are reading it are wondering why the tone of it. And the tone is very much, we demand this, we demand that. It's because we've been asking for it for so long and haven't seen any movement in it. Black, brown, you know, people of color, indigenous folks, we've been asking for this thing since the 60s and 70s, you know, a more equitable theater. And it seems like the cries of people have been on deaf ears, or that it's like, we'll get to it. And now that the bill is due on it, and people are demanding change. You see what happens. People are having to have this reckoning. They have to see what is happening to Black people in particular. It's the event of George Floyd has changed this country, and made people have to realize something. And I don't want to negate the thing that happened the day before George Floyd, Chris Cooper, and what happened to him in Central Park.
Exactly.
And everybody, and waking up that morning and seeing this man being falsely accused of something, and our minds went to, you know what could have happened to him? He could have been killed. By her saying that this Black man, this African American man, was threatening her life and going full Karen on him, Darth Karen, as she's been called by some, you know, and so people were woke on that, and then the next day to see what happened to George Floyd, people were like, this is what could have happened to him. So people were upset about that. And then their fears of that were realized less than 24 hours later. So that set people up to demand justice in this country, to demand equity in this country, to demand a stop to brutality, a stop to unfairness, and it's a call for justice. And that's the thing that when I read that article, when I read those demands aren't asking for anything but a call to justice, to create a more just theater, society, and it's actually a blueprint on how you can get there. You know, if you could follow some of the demands that are in there, you know, you can have a more equitable theater. And it's a very serious document, and a document that should be treated very seriously. And we should be looking at that document and saying, what can we do to incorporate that into our practice? And if we can't, then why can't we do it?
Give
So,
everybody listening who may not just a little real quick like short background or synopsis on what that article exactly is and it's about or what it says.
so we see you white American theater was originally conceived by two people that then became 10 people, that then became 30 people, that then became 300 people, that then became 82,000 people. And that's and the reason why it spread that way, because it resonated with people. It resonated with people how the American theater has become or was set up to be. And that might be it may not have been set up, but that's what it's become. A place where people of color are operating on two different sets of rules, much like what's happening in America. That there's an America that's functioning on one level for white people and that have privilege in that world, and there's another America that's set up for people that are not white. And how are we then dealing with racism in our culture, and systematic racism in our culture? Everyone says that most of my friends, they're not racist, and they say that they're not racist, and I believe that they're not racist, but it's not enough to be not racist. You have to be anti-racist. You have to be willing to take down the systems that have been set up that oppress other people. So how are you being, I know you're not a racist, but how are you being and how are you becoming an anti-racist?
Right.
And that's questions that we're grappling with right now. How are we as a society becoming anti-racist? How are we dismantling racist power? How are we dismantling racist policies? How are we confronting racist ideas?
Right.
So that's where I think most of us are now.
And I guess the next question is in that space, like how do we honestly move forward with that? One of the big things I've seen, and as you've seen over the last years, there's always the workshops, there's always the racial training workshops, the racial sensitivity workshops, and the talk of the country now is the white fragility book, and there's how do we move forward in that? Because I know, like, I feel like, and we've always been like this because it's just how we are. We're just people who've always spoken our mind. Like, it is what it is. In every room we're in, we speak our truth. We are our truth. We look our truth, and we don't really have that much of a choice but to speak our truth. But at the same time, you have a lot of people who are like, well, who are Black or people of color who are like, well, it's not my responsibility anymore to teach anybody anything. It's not my responsibility. I'm tired of having the conversations. But, in my opinion, you can't get tired of having the conversations, and you can't be tired of being who you are. And you can't always just chalk it up to, well, we just need to get our own. And I'm like, well, we've had our own. There's people who have their own. But even if you have your own, you're still part of the greater community in whatever city or area you're in. You know what I mean? So, like, in your opinion, how do we honestly move forward with these conversations? Or what is your idea of how these conversations move forward to really bring about the equity? And I say equity more than equality, to bring about the equity and the real representation that so many of us are looking for or are talking about.
I think that there are several ways. I I always lean back on the training that I had in Peace Corps. So we talked about something. My Peace Corps training is really important part of who I am as a person. There's this story of the Peace Corps volunteer who goes into the community and sees that people are pulling water, from the river, and women are having to walk 5 miles with this water on their head in the buckets. And he says, well, you know what? It'd be great if we could just drill into the aquifer and pump the water up and give people fresh water and not this dirty water in the river. And we could then, filter it and give clean water. That would be great. And he tells it to his supervisors in Peace Corps. And they say, that's great. We should do that. And they get all the people, the NGOs, the non-governmental agencies that are around. They donate money. They get money in, they build the water filtration plant, and it's great. And it opens up, and it's this big building, and people come from all over the country, and they cut the ribbon, and yeah, it's wonderful. Then the volunteer leaves 6 months later. The plant breaks down a year later, and they got this big building that's taking up a lot of resources, and nobody's using it anymore.
Right.
And nobody's using it anymore because the one thing that the guy didn't do was ask the people if they wanted a water filtration plant.
Right.
The women actually liked walking 5 miles away to get away from their husbands, to have a chance to bond as a community, to get a chance to trade stories and share their culture with each other. So I always think that you have to ask the people, what do they want? That we have a problem that we need help from. So who do we need the help from? We need the help from people that are younger. We need the help from people that don't look like the subscribers that have typically been coming into the theater. We need the help to fulfill the promise of being a not-for-profit in service of the public good. So we need to talk to people about what would make them come to our theaters, to our institutions, to use our products, whatever it is, in the not-for-profit world or in the for-profit world. You need to talk to people, and people have ideas, and it's not a top-down experience of, I'm going to make this thing up and then put it on you, and then you're going to respond to it, because you don't know what people really want. You have to ask people, what do they want? And then they'll share with you. And if you come to them humbly and say, I need help in doing this, not that I'm doing something for you, because you're really not, you're doing something for yourself. There has to be equity in it.
Right.
And that's the equity part. There has to be equity within what's going on. And then you can change what you see that's happening. So the only way that I think that we get out of this is we talk to people in our communities. We listen to people in our communities. We really listen to what they have to say, and why are they not coming to our place? What are some of the historical things that happened that made them not come to our place? And then how can we atone for that? And how can we then set up an action plan to right these things?
Right. And
I think that if you do that, that you can have a good chance of changing the outcome. Now, I really believe that.
And so what does that look like? Like, where does that start at in an organization? Like, where does that footwork begin at?
I think you identify who it is that you want to talk to. Who is it that you want to, and then you find out, okay, where are those people at? Where are they? If you want to bring in, Latinx people, you have to go to Latinx communities. You have to, find out who the tastemakers are there. Who are the people in positions of power there? Who are the people that know people that can make some introductions that you could sit down and then have the beginning of a conversation with them about, some of the things that they may want. That's how we built our program. That's how we built the arts engagement program here. That's how I built the programs in New York. In the parks that we went to, it was meeting with community groups, asking them if they wanted this stuff. Is this something that would interest them? What would they like to hear? What would they like to see? You know, being in conversation with people. I really work for the people of San Diego. Wherever I go, I work for the people. You know, I report to, you know, my artistic director, my managing director, the board, but I have to work for the people, you know,
Right.
because that's who gives us relevancy. If we're not working for them, then we're irrelevant. And if we're irrelevant, then we become, you know, I could give you an art form, but I don't want to get in trouble.
so so in that that takes humility and vulnerability, right?
Yeah.
That takes humility and vulnerability. Like that takes from an organization that takes humility and vulnerability in how they approach these communities, and going there not acting like some type of imperial
Cultural,
force
like
or
cultural imperialist.
right, exactly.
Cultural imperialism. You can have a cultural imperialist.
Right.
Work successfully. You
Yeah,
know, it just doesn't work, you know? And you can't act like you're helping people because that doesn't work either. That can be part of it, but really you're looking for help. And that was something that we really consciously, when we were building these programs, we always asked for help in doing this, you know? And this way, look, when I was a kid, I grew up in the 70s, and I remember there was this community center. And in this community center, I still remember what it looked. It was like, it had orange walls. They had pictures of Martin Luther King, you know, Malcolm X, Harriet Tubman on the walls, like big murals of these folks. There were drumming classes inside. I remember walking past there, you know, like folks in dashikis and stuff.
right.
And it was a trip for me because, you know, like my parents, you know, like my family, they were into like the Delphonics, you know, Earth, Wind and Fire, you know, like that's but they were like playing Gil Scott Heron,
Right.
you know, like stuff that I just wasn't really used to. But I came there and it was a place that I started to go to instead of going to the park, you know, and it was a place that really meant a lot to me. And then I remember one day going there to look for it, and the place was like shut down and there was nobody there. And I remember asking the dudes at the laundromat next door how to, you know, like what happened to the place. And they were laughing. He said that, I don't know. I guess you can't pay the rent banging on bongos. You know, but it was like, but it meant it affected me profoundly because that's part of the reason why I didn't think that I could ever become an artist. It started back then in my mind because you couldn't live on that. But what I really realized is that there wasn't a proper argument that was made that the community, that the people that were there, that they had something that was really there to offer. You know, that they weren't just looking for free arts programs. You know, they were helping the county, the city, the state to fulfill their mission of creating a better society. And when those things left, society fell. You know, you saw those places close up. You saw drugs come in. You saw trash not getting picked up. You saw all these things. You saw the deterioration of the community. You know, so they needed to have these programs, but it was like people were saying, you know, well, why are we paying for all this? Why are we paying for all this? They couldn't see the big picture that you're really paying for a better society, you know, and
Right.
that's where our tax dollars should be going to, is to pay for a better society, a more equitable society.
Because when you're able to enter that space, and especially when you're able to do it in a true representational form, especially the young people, they see themselves.
Yeah.
They see themselves and they see more opportunities. You know, it was like, you know, I had a chance to talk to Freddie Jackson. I never knew this about him. He grew up like around the corner from the Apollo Theater.
Mm-hmm.
So growing up around the corner from the Apollo Theater, he's seeing all these spectacular superstars that sing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because he's seeing these people in his neighborhood. He's seeing these people daily doing these other things, which lets him realize that he can do these things, or he can do these things along those lines. And, you know, when we're on this mission in the arts to, you know, everybody has these spectacular mission statements about, you know, reflecting the culture and this and that and reaching out. But, you know, if you're, like you said, if you're not taking it as part of your, a phrase that not enough people, I think, know or use these days, your civic responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I think that's a phrase
Yeah.
that kids should be taught. Like, it's just part of your civic responsibility of dealing in your city, in your neighborhood, to expose each other to each other's cultures in every way possible. And that theater or performing arts is one of the major ways that people see themselves in their cultures.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, I mean, like that's a big problem. Is that, you know, I remember even when I was growing up, they stopped teaching civics. You know, they started dumbing down people because when they were teaching civics in the '60s, people started hitting the streets. You know, and saying that these are what my rights are. You know,
Right.
like I don't have to be just a cog in the machine, man. You know, like I can be the machine.
Right.
And stop teaching civics. But we need civics. You see that we need civics now more than ever. You know, with how our country is running, uh, and yeah, that's it's important.
You know, uh, something else that you touched upon, as far as like you were saying, like, you know, you started working in carpentry, and I told people my story, how I got into theater. My dad has been head of security at the Spreckles Theater, and I started working maintenance at the Spreckles, which was my
Mhm.
kind of official entrance into the workings of the theater world. I did some stuff when I was in high school. He let me come up and, you know, just for show, some extra bucks, and maybe be part of the security team for certain shows. But when I started working there and working, that was my introduction into
Yeah.
how the the backstage work, and then ticketing and now fund development. And you know, just like your path, and now, you know, when we're talking about representation, and trying to show people that even as we're talking about this, that there's more than just what happens on stage in theater. There are other careers. And what I try to tell people is that, you know, you're already dealing in American theater, and for the most part, you're already looking at a lack of representation because it is mostly white.
Mm-hmm.
Then when you move away from the stage, it becomes even more white once you start getting into, you know, what is happening backstage and the technical stuff. Then when you get into administration, it becomes even less.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get into like me and you, as far as being men working, black men working in administration, and people might not believe this, but we've been to the conferences, we've been to the national conferences.
Mm-hmm.
You are a unicorn. Like, you're a unicorn. You stand out in those rooms when it comes to that. What has been some of your observations in that space? Because, you know, I try to spend my time telling people about, hey, it's not just about what happens on stage. I want young people to understand they can come into this thing in the tech world, or in the tech way, or the administrative way, or the electrician way, or the carpenter way.
Um, my I've been saying this for at least the last few months that that we have to figure out how to abolish the 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 volunteer usher system. You know, that's a huge impediment to people uh, coming to the theater, because they come to the theater and they don't see themselves represented there, uh, and it doesn't allow young people those entry level jobs.
Hmm.
I got in the theater because there was an entry level job for me there.
Right.
And I know a lot of people that stayed in that theater because there were entry level jobs for them and moved on to different positions in there. If I didn't have that entry level job, I wouldn't have gotten in the theater. We would
Right.
not we would not be sitting here having this conversation. No way.
No way.
No way at all would I be having a conversation with you. Would I be the associate artistic director and director of arts engagement at the Old Globe? Would not happen. Not a possibility. Because I needed money to, for things.
Right.
Like even for things. but but I did not have that. I wouldn't have been there, and and it made all the difference in the world, because once I got in, then I could find out that there was positions in carpentry to break down the set. I could find out that there was positions in sound to run cables, you know, in lighting to hang lights. You know, like I could find that. But if I didn't have that, you know, like I couldn't afford to be an intern. You know, like I couldn't do that. So if you're not paying people, you're only going to get people that can afford to do that kind of job, that have the support. And a lot of us don't have that kind of support to go and work for free. You know, like no, we don't. I couldn't get to the job. You know,
Right.
like I couldn't get to the internship if I didn't have, you know, the money to you know, buy a token in those days. You know,
Yeah,
like
because the internship has never been an option for me in anything. Like
ever,
my first job
ever.
was I was 15 years old was my first like this. Yeah, internship has never ever been an option.
No, man. No, I was handing out, you know, like those little circulars, you know, like the little things, you know, like the penny savers.
Yeah,
Man, I was doing that, trying to make money, you know, because if I didn't do that, I wasn't gonna have it,
and
you
it's
know.
funny. It's funny you say that because exactly what you're saying. I always had a dream of getting in the radio. My dream from a kid was getting in the radio, and a lot of radio stations.
Oh, you too handsome for radio, man. You know,
Nah,
like you
man.
don't need to be doing you got a
I'm
great
learning to do
radio
this. I'm
voice,
learning to do
man.
this camera thing, man. I like being in a room with a microphone where nobody can see me. I wanted to get into radio, but a lot
Yeah.
of stations did internships. I got lucky when I started at the time at Jefferson Pilot Communications at 98.1. They didn't do internships. They did paid promotional staff.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the only way I could do it because I needed a gig. Like whatever I was doing that time that I wanted to put in the radio, I needed to make money doing it because I didn't have time to do it without it. I needed the dough. And it just happened to be they were like, no, we don't do internships. We do paid promotional staff. And
Yeah.
it's just like you're saying, I wouldn't have got into the radio like that. I didn't have time to do an internship. They were paying me. So I was able to make some money and
Yeah.
learn on the job.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, you know, like I mean, like this whole free labor thing is different. You know, like I mean, in New York there might be some internships, but there ain't all this, you know, like free ushering stuff at these big theaters, man. Like, nah, that's not cool, man. You
Right.
know, like man, put some extra dough on it, you know, on the price of a ticket. You know, put a $3 surcharge on it. That goes to paying, you know, like some of these kids to come in and give them jobs. If they have jobs, they're gonna talk to their people and say, hey, you got to get on down here and see what's happening. You
Right.
know, like it's gonna electrify the facility, the faculty, you know, just having these younger people there. You know, you can still keep some volunteers there because, you know, some of the volunteers are older, they're on fixed income, you know, they can still get the same deal that they had, you know, like see free shows and stuff
Right.
like that. You know, like we can leave it, but we got to radically transform it. I think we've got to knock that number down so that we can make room for some of these kids to come in here, for some younger people to come in here. Have to.
Because like I'm looking at, you know, when I look at things like, you know, I watch a lot of NBA, a lot. I watch a lot of peripheral basketball stuff, and it's like, you know, even more now and ever. But you see like, you know, you see the videos in the summer or videos right now. This top recruit out of high school, he's playing somewhere with James Harden on the court, or he's playing somewhere with Jay Morant, and I'm like, that's pipeline. That's a
Yeah.
young cat getting ready to come out of high school,
Yeah.
and he's playing with professionals. He's putting himself in that space, and we don't have that pipeline, like
Yeah.
you're saying,
Yeah.
because those kids don't have, like you said, they don't have time to volunteer for nothing. They need to get paid. They need to make money. They need to take money home. They need to make money for school. You know,
Yeah.
and if we want them to come into this field, then we need to be able to have a pipeline. They need to come sit with me at work and watch what I do, deal with these contributions and deal with grants and deal, like, they need to come sit there and watch you at work and what you do as you reach out to people.
Yeah. And that's always open. I see Steven is putting out things. I mean, like, they need to sit with him and learn what he does. We need to be able to train people. We need to let them know that this is a viable option for them in their life. The Globe has 117, I think, full-time employees. They're not on stage, like they are running our IT, our tickets, our box office, our finance department, our HR department, our philanthropy department, our marketing and PR, our arts engagement jobs. Like, there are a lot of jobs, our artistic jobs, our general management jobs. There are a lot of jobs that are there for people to work in, and that people don't even know. They think that, oh, I don't want to get in the theater, I don't want to act, I don't want to be out there on the stage. Like you don't get to get out there on stage, homie.
Yeah, I'm going nowhere near a stage.
You don't get nowhere near the stage. Like, stay away from the stage. Go add up these numbers. Go put up these poster boards. Like do some of that stuff. And there's a lot of opportunities to do that.
Look, man, I want to go for about 10 more minutes, but there's something really important I want to get to you and talk to you about. I just want to tell everybody very quickly, we're going to have a brief question and answer period. If you're watching on Zoom or Facebook, please submit your questions by submit your questions by chat. And Chelsea, and I want to give a shout out to Chelsea and the wonderful Rep production staff who are working behind the scenes, as y'all don't know, that are making this happen. Go ahead and put your questions in the chat in either Zoom or Facebook, and Chelsea will relay to me those questions, and we'll get to them as many as we can.
What's saying? This woman sent me a message privately. She said she wants to know where in Ethiopia I was from. She was in Addis in Peace Corps in 66 and 68, a lifetime ago. She was in the city. You were having a good old time in the city, Susan. You weren't really in Peace Corps. I was in the countryside. The Chica bit. I was in this little mud town. I was in Sadamo. So yeah, I was in the real Peace Corps. Like, there's some people that are in Peace Corps and they're like in Peace Corps in the Dominican Republic, and they're like, man, you were in like Club Med Peace Corps.
I told y'all.
I'm just teasing you, Susan. I know it's hard. Being in Peace Corps is a hard job. We just all like to tease each other.
Well, that moves on to the thing that I wanted to talk to you about, man, because I don't think people understand how important this is, and I want you to touch briefly on why you feel this is important about, the work you've done with incarcerated populations. I don't think people understand that. People think when people get locked up, that's it, they're gone. They don't understand. Majority of people get locked up, got to come back home. You will want them to come back home in better mental and spiritual shape and better and educated better than when they went in. This is something that, really hits close to home to me. Talk to me a little bit about the work you've done in that and what inspires you to do that and why you feel it's important.
Man, that's a classic example of, I remember when I was talking to Barry and he was talking to me about the job, and he was like, so what are you going to do? Barry, so what are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know. It's like, you don't know? What do you mean? I was like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk to people and I'm going to figure this thing out. I'm going to figure out what we can do, based on what the people want. And I had no idea that we would be doing a program in prisons when I came here. No idea at all. But we have a tour called Globe for All. And the Globe for All tour is a traditional outreach program. You have a program, you go into communities, you show what you do, and then you go home. But the good thing that we had with Globe for All was we had a way of having a conversation with the community and saying, all right, this is what we do. This is what theater looks like. What do you all, how does this fit into what you all need or what you all want? Or how can we work together in something? And we went out to, Las Colinas, the women's detention and reentry facility. And those women, man, we were doing Shakespeare, and the women, they understood that language, they understood the situations, they understood what was going on better than any audience that I had ever been in, for a multitude of reasons. But I knew that there was something special. Then we went out and we did the show with the men in Centinela State Prison, State Penitentiary. And I was walking with the warden, and I said, what can we do, to partner with you? And he said, come back. He said, don't just come back with the show, come back and spend time with the men. And we did the show, and the men that were there looked like me, looked like you, looked like my cousin, looked like my little nephew, looked like my uncle. They just like people that I grew up with. And they asked, they talked about how great it was and how could we come back, how they needed these programs, And the thing that the main difference that I saw between myself and them was that they made a mistake and got caught for making a mistake. Some of them heinous mistakes, some of them, just life-altering mistakes. But it changed my perception of what people think people in prison are. They think that, you're taught that everybody in prison is bad, and that everyone in prison doesn't, you watch the Shawshank Redemption, and that, oh yeah, we're all, everybody here is innocent. Those men none of them said that they were innocent, that they were there because something happened to them. They all owned up to the mistakes that they made, and they were there dealing with the mistakes that they made. And they needed some tools on how to be able to get some language around some of the things, some things that would help them. I'll give you an example. We did Romeo and Juliet, and we were talking to the men about, Romeo has that scene with the friar. And it's always been one of I always hated that scene. I was like, Romeo's so, he's so whiny and like, banish. What does it mean to be banished? You do a show in the middle of the desert with men that haven't seen their families in 15, 20 years, and have a conversation with them about being banished. And it'll change your life. It changes how you think of this work and how they can explain this work to you, and what it means to them to be able to talk about being banished, away from society. And right. And to be able to do a program that would allow the men to have an outlet. You see people are dealing with, who they are thought to be, and they go into rooms, and you'll see the Latinx brothers sitting over here, the Black brothers sitting over here, and if there is a white person in there, they're sitting over there, and you see how they wind up breaking down through the work, and breaking down these social norms, and they start having interactions and seeing each other as human beings and not just as the color of their skin or who they've been said that they're supposed to be. They start making friendships. They start breaking down barriers. It changes their lives, and really it changed my life. They changed me, and I'll be forever grateful to the men and women that we work with, because they made me recognize my own humanity by working with them and opening me up more.
The reason why I wanted to touch on that is because, that's something that's very important to me. It was funny, the other day, I stumbled on this YouTube channel called Real Black, REELBLACK, and they have all kinds of old black movies, documentaries, TV shows, and they had Rock Live. I don't know if you remember when Rock did a live
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
season on
yeah,
HBO. They
yeah,
they they had the whole season on HBO of Rock Live, and
yeah,
a lot of people didn't understand that that's where Charles S. Dutton got his start,
yeah,
was in prison
yeah,
from a theater program that went into the prison where he was.
yeah,
And another reason why that's so close to my heart, I kind of put myself out there as a sacrificial lamb because it's so important to me. But as you talk about Centinela, people need to understand that this is real talk. Like I'm a graduate of the illustrious California Department of Corrections. You know what I'm saying? Like you know, like you said, people make mistakes when they're young. It depends on what they do with it.
yeah,
And here I am, so many years later. Been in San Diego radio and in this performing arts, community for the last 20 years. And people need to realize that, you know, there's roses growing from concrete everywhere, like my man Pac said, and we need to be able to take the time to understand that, like, you know, what you guys do in that space is so important because there are men who are looking to turn themselves around. There are men who just made mistakes. There are men who go into prison and completely become different people because they do have access to materials or to art or to books, and and that's what it is. And so I just wanted to, I really just wanted to get your thoughts on that and why you did that and
we can't
why.
well we can't talk well we can't talk about transforming theaters and transforming society and not and talking about systematic racism and not talk about what's going on in prisons,
Right.
because that is systematic racism at work. When somebody when a white person can have a pound of cocaine and get a slap on the wrist or or not have to do mandatory time for powdered cocaine, and somebody walks around with $200 worth of crack and then has to do 15 to 20 years. That's systemic racism
Yeah.
because black people, brown people were using crack cocaine and white people were using powdered cocaine.
Right.
So when people will talk about there's no such thing as systemic racism, please, it's all set up that way. So
Right.
how are we breaking that down? How can we do our little part in the theater world to break down those walls and to break down what's happening in society and to build a better culture?
Better
That's what we
culture.
are. A theater company, all of our not-for-profits, we're here for the public good. We're not here to make theater.
Right.
We utilize theater to achieve the public good, but we're not. That's not our mission. Our mission is to achieve the public good.
It's civic duty, man. It's
Yeah.
civic duty. Let's get into some questions, man, because we got a few questions
Let's
on
go.
board. The first question is from Laura. She asks, how do you know when a particular battle is worth having when working toward overall anti-racist change? Yeah, because there's battles.
Um, I look at this thing as dealing with justice. You know, um, is this going to make us more just? How is this going to make us more just? Um, how's the impact? Who's this going to impact? Is this going to impact 2 people or is this going to impact 300 people? Some things you have to look at. All right, I can't do this right now because what I could do this, I should do this, but I don't have the resources at that time to do the thing. So I will do this thing, So I think it's a matter of priorities. Which battle do you fight at the time? It's how do you prioritize what's more important and what can get done at that time? As I've gotten older, I try to see it, what can I get done? And if I know that I can't get something done, I'm going to go and see what I can get done. And then hopefully move the goalpost, move down the field a little bit, advance, you use a sports metaphor,
Right.
Advance the ball down the field a little bit more. You know, get it from half court. Get it from half court, coach.
I got a question from Andrea, and I'll bring you in on this question. She asked it particularly to me, but I think this is something you could talk about too. She asked me what percentage of our donor base is people of color, and has it increased with much of the reps programming about POCs? I can't get into particular details, Andrea, but I will say not enough, and that's not their fault. I think, you know, especially as we're moving to this time now, you look at the Mellon Foundation is like, we're not giving anybody money anymore if there's not anti-racist work going on. And, you know, we're looking at an economy now that's hurting everybody except the people on the very, very top. And so everybody has to make decisions on where they're going to put their money. And people are going to put their money in places where they feel there's going to be a return. And so, you know, you're not going to put your money in a place to where you don't see there being any return into what you feel is culturally important. You know, I've had this conversation with my man over at the Globe, Mr. Michael Taylor, on your board. You know what I mean? We've had this discussion, and it makes me so proud to see that brother on a board in such a big theater organization in San Diego. You know, and I don't know if you have anything to speak towards that of what it is to try to get more people of color to, you know, be donors. I think we have to put something out there for them to see that it's worth. Where making donations is an investment. You're investing something out of your heart and your soul and something that you worked hard for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that people have to feel like there's a space for them, you know, and they have to go in and know that, you know, BIPOC are just like everybody else. They want to see stories that reflect their values, that reflect them, you know, that reflect who they are on the stage, just like everybody else, you know. And they want to be engaged, you know. They want to go to a place and feel, you know, that I think that the building that they're going into matches their values. I'm so proud that we were honored by the Voice and Viewpoints earlier this year. You know, like, I'm not one for big awards and everything, but I remember when I first came into town, and Black people were like, you know, the Old Globe, like, what does the Old Globe want from us? You know, like, it was a very transactional relationship. They're like, the Old Globe comes around here when they want us to buy tickets about something, you know.
A black show's coming.
The Black show, you know, for the Black show, and we invested, you know, like, our time, and not, I mean, like, we did it because we wanted to be relevant in Southeast San Diego, you know. So we have partnerships with the 4th District Senior Center. It's one of our best partnerships that we have. We do a Juneteenth celebration there. They invited us to be part of their Juneteenth celebration. You know, we write plays together. You know, they show up for our special events. We show up for their special events. It's like family. You know, it's a deep relationship, man. They're our VIPs when they come to the theater. When we did August Wilson play a couple of months ago, they were like, no, we're gonna buy tickets. We want to buy, you know, they bought like 100 and something tickets. They had a whole night when they came on out, because they know that the work that we do in the community with them is important. But we didn't ask them to buy tickets. They said that they wanted to buy tickets. So you can find people that would want to be on the board if they saw that the work that you were doing was impacting their grandmothers, their nieces, their nephews, that their cousins, that their children were benefiting from it, that you were serving the public good. You would get more Latinx people if you showed that if you were doing programs around what they value. You know, if you were having a real conversation with people, I think that you would see that you'll be able to see different things. And then you have to really, I mean, that's something that people on the board have to be willing to do. You know, like, if you're on a board and all of your friends are white, you might want to look at that and say, like, well, hey, how can I get some friends? Like, my Facebook feed is very diverse. I have people of all different ethnicities. Like, you should have different people. You should know different people. You shouldn't have just one, friend of this ethnicity or that ethnicity. You should know more people. You should want to know more people.
That's right. That's right. I got one more question. And this question comes from Mrs. Anthonelle. Chandra, how you doing? How do those of us who work in theater make amends for past? For how do those of us who work in theater make amends for the past that we've been a part of that was problematic? That's that's a hard question.
Like when it's something that came up today, and it was a situation that came up today, and it was a tense situation, and I said, well, the first thing that you have to do, when I don't care what you say or anything, if it doesn't start with, listening to somebody and saying, when you hear what you have done, or if you're feeling something, for me to say, if I've done something, I say, I'm sorry at the beginning, and I say at the end, it'll never happen again. And in the middle, I say, this is what I'm going to do around it. But I think that it has to lead with, that any atonement has to say, like, I heard what you said. I offer this apology. This is how I'm going to do to change what happened. And I guarantee you that this will never happen again.
Right.
And I think that's what has to happen in anything when you're looking for, when I've done stuff. I remember one time, I had a person, one of my colleagues, and I was stressed. I was in the office. I was banging out something. I was trying to do it. And my colleague kept asking for this thing, and I was like, wait. And they kept asking, and I answered them very sharply. I said, I'm doing something right now. And it was like, and the room froze. And I knew that I had went a little bit too far in my answer to that person at that time. So I finished doing what I was doing, took a break, took some time. And then I went back in front of my whole staff and I apologized to her. And she said, you don't have to apologize. I was like, I said it in front of everybody. I said, I was this way. I snapped at you in front of everybody so I can come to you and apologize in front of everybody. And in this way we can get over it,
Right.
We can have a conversation about it and people see that, hey, we're all human. We're all trying, we're all trying.
That's right. I think a big part of that too, they're very simple words, but they're really hard to deal with, especially in the social media world we live in today, because everything is so quick and everything's so many characters, and people are in there. Everyone's in their little social media bubbles. Like you said, you have to diversify the people that you deal with, or you're not going to understand. I think, it's kind of quantum thinking, being in two spaces at once or being in two different states. You have to be able to deal with empathy and context. You have to be able, no matter how hard it is, to put yourself in the place of the other person. You have to try as much as you can to just put yourself in that place and remove yourself so that you can see how that situation is flowing to them. Because it's not flowing to you the same way it's flowing to them. Your experience is not the same. My experience is not the same as yours. Yours is not the exact same as mine. We're in two different places. So we have to have some type of empathy to slow ourselves down and be able to just understand where that person is coming from, or how they're telling us the past is perceived to them versus how it's perceived to us.
Yeah.
I don't think we have any more questions, man. Freedom, we going to have to do.
I can talk to you all night. I mean, we can go on. We can go on till like 12 o'clock tonight.
I know. You gonna have to come back, man.
Especially if you had some fine brown in here. Oh man,
Well, look, man, I'm definitely gonna have you come back, man, because we like
anytime,
we could
anytime.
me and you could just have a series in ourselves, man, with this conversation.
But the thing is, man, the thing is, you had asked a question before, and we'll wrap it up too. Like how you make these changes, and I left out a very important part. There has to be some kind of accountability that happens. There has to be like, okay, once you come up with the action plan, then you can't just let the action plan go. You gotta have real check-ins on the time. So like set deadlines for yourself. We're gonna get this done from this point in the first 6 months. Then we're gonna bring people back that we talked to and reconvene and report out. And then we're gonna have another section we know that this is gonna take a year to do. So we're gonna begin the phase 2 at this point. Then there's gonna be another point that we come back and check in at the end of that year. Then in 18 months, we're gonna come back and check in again. We're gonna report out. We're gonna say what we do. We're gonna reassess. We're gonna fix some things, and you keep going like that. But it has to have some real kind of accountability, some real reporting out, and it has to be transparent. That's what people are demanding right now. They want to see that something is happening, and they want transparency, and they're asking for it, and they're not asking for it. They're demanding it. And if you don't do it, you're gonna run into some serious problems. I think if you're not able to be transparent in the actions that you're doing, especially when you're talking about being of public service.
Because it's almost like, it just reminds me. It's almost like that Tupac interview, right, where he was talking about where he's like, we hear the people in the other room. We hear the other people in the other room, they're eating, and we're at the door like, hey, we're hungry. We want some food. And you come back the next day, they don't open the door. You're like, hey, we hungry. We want some food. And you come back the next day and you're starving. They're eating. And you're like, okay, now we're coming in the door. I'm picking the lock. Okay, it's like things have come to a head. There's been a lot of talking. We've seen the talking all our lives. I've talked about my dad all the time. This man was served in the Navy and would come home and get chased by the Klan. We feel like we've lived like people don't understand. This is not, they've seen this in movies. This is stuff that's handed down to us. These are things that we have to learn. We have Monique Gaffney on here, and she was talking about seeing James Baldwin in her house as a kid. And I was watching James Baldwin's I'm Not Your Negro the other day, and he had such an interesting thing, an interesting quote where he was saying that growing up, we had to see white people in institutions. We had to. Mm-hmm. We didn't have a choice. We knew what they were all about. Mm-hmm. We completely had to understand what they were all about, but they had no idea what we were about.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the paradox that we live in. Like we know the institutions because we've had no choice but to see it and study it and see the weight of them on us. Mm-hmm. But they've never had, to look at us. And so again, man, that's why, I appreciate everything that you're doing, man. Keep up the good work. And before we get out of here, man, anything on your mind you want to tell the people right now? What's happening on the globe? What's on the radar, man? What do you want to look at, man?
Man, just check in on us. We have pride that's going. I mean, I'm really proud of my staff. I haven't had an opportunity to brag on them, but man, I got a great staff of really smart people that do work in prisons, that do work in community centers. But the work that we've been doing right now online and connecting people who have been isolated into their house and creating a community, much like what you're doing right here. We were able to do that, in March. We were able to really, and that's because of the staff that we have. Kate Haroff, who's been promoted to my associate director, really helped to spearhead some of the programs that we're doing. Laura Zablit has been wonderful. Check out her Word Up program. Check out Kate Haroff and the living room series that she's doing. Liesl Goretz-Getz has really come about, making curriculum for young people, because that's going to be extremely important in the next months, especially as these schools have shut down, and how people are able to engage their children through theater. We have some wonderful stuff there. Viet Godot has been putting together our Summer Shakespeare studio. You know, some really top flight people have worked on that. James Pilar, Erica Phillips, that are directing Romeo and Juliet right now for kids that are in high school. The development department made sure that they raise funds. All these kids are going to this for free. So there's a lot of great programs that are happening. We have a technical theater program. The Globe is the first theater company in the city, and one of the first that I know of that has most theater companies have acting classes. You know, the Globe is putting together, trying to work with some pipeline issues and get kids in doing the technical theater aspect. So there's a lot of great programs. If you check out the Globe's website, you can find out more. But if you check out, please join our arts engagement at the Old Globe, AE at TOG on Facebook, and you can really see, keep yourself informed and abreast of some of the programs, and also follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we're really trying to move everything onto that YouTube channel and broadcast on YouTube. You know, Facebook has come under fire, rightfully so, for some of the practices and letting people and letting hate speech thrive on their platform. So we're trying to move stuff over to YouTube right now. More young people, less. You don't have to join YouTube. You can just go on and check out some of the work that we're doing there. We got a lot of great work, you know. But I'm really excited about some of the things that I know we're going to be doing in the next few weeks. After 100 days after George Floyd was murdered, we plan on coming out with a real comprehensive plan of things that we're going to be doing in the Black community and in other communities throughout San Diego. So that's something to really look forward to, you know, how we're going to be more transparent, how we're going to, you know, do some of the work that we've said that we want to do as far as being an anti-racist organization.
That's right. That's right. He goes by the name of Freedom Bradley Ballentine, y'all. This is my brother right here doing big work. Make sure you follow the Old Globe on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Follow them everywhere you can. And again, just want to let you guys know. Go ahead, Freedom.
And since you mentioned James Baldwin, I'll leave you with this quote. James Baldwin said, "Fires can't be made with dead embers. Enthusiasm in our daily work lightens efforts and turns even labor into pleasant tasks." So Find what you love to do in this world, and it's not work. It's a joy to do it. All right?
That's right. That's what I'm talking about. Be excited to do it. Y'all, make sure you come back and join us on July 30th, where I will have Mr. Thomas Jones for a conversation. Also on August 13th, actress Minka Wiltz. Look, Freedom, thank you, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, bro.
Bring me back anytime. I love doing this.
Man, we'd love to have you back, man. Everybody, please, again, follow the Old Globe. Follow everything they're doing over there. They're trailblazing here in San Diego. And make sure you follow San Diego Repertory Theater on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can watch a rebroadcast of this discussion on our Facebook page, also on our YouTube page. You can check out all the other discussions we've had so far. And again, thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend. Be safe. I'll talk to you in a couple weeks when Mr. Thomas W. Jones is joining me. Freedom, again, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ahmed. It's a pleasure.
All right, man. Have a good night, and have a good night, everybody.
All right.